and a very, very warm welcome to Nishant, who's been a friend and has made me wait for a year to be here as a guest. But like we were speaking, he says absolutely the right things. He says the time has to ripen and things happen. So things have happened, and welcome to the show, Nishant. Thank you for being here.
No, it's a pleasure. I know we've been discussing this for a while, but fortunately this happened. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. So, honestly, I've been searching what are the topics that we can speak on, and one of the topics that uh, was running in my head was this uh, when we become meditators or we are trying to meditate and go on a path which is uh, an alternative way to look at knowledge, if I were to call it that, what happens to ambition?
Sorry, I think you got cut off for a second. Could you repeat the
Um,
question? There
uh,
was some lag.
okay. Uh, when we are on a path of an alternate kind,
Yeah,
what happens to our ambition? If we wanted to be something or someone
yeah,
or successful in a certain manner, what happens to that?
yeah. That's a very. I struggle with that question myself, but I think the problem lies in that question. The minute and I've seen that happen in me over the last few decades. There was a time when I was thinking that I'm on a different path,
Oh,
which is like non-mainstream path, right? That oh, I'm a meditator or something, and that I now realize was the most stupid thing to do because that categorization, that labeling, that oh, मैं तो कुछ अलग कर रहा हूँ, I am on a different path, or I'm trying to do something, that itself skews reality and puts you it sets you up for some successes, but it also puts you up to fail. And I mean, ambition and goals is a completely different topic altogether. Just viewing yourself in a light that you're on a different journey, or even a slightly any adjective before your journey loses the point. And the more, and I'm by no means there, but now I realize how I've harmed myself by qualifying my journey and therefore, because when I'm qualifying my journey, I'm also very subtly judging everybody else's journey. And that unity becomes fractionalized. Oh, then it's me and my types and they and their types. And it's
uh,
just it quickly goes downhill. I don't know if it makes sense,
it
but
does, it does.
so I haven't even begun answering your question. I'm just questioning the question itself.
Uh, yeah, so let me clarify a bit
Yeah.
on that. So, this perhaps is an answer to a far more subtler question that you have answered. But my question was very, very basic.
Mm.
So, say once I finish my schooling, I get into some college, I start understanding what I want or what I don't in terms of choosing careers, in terms of being a certain kind of professional.
Yeah.
Very simply, only within this.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not even putting the burden of extra ambition saying the best in the world or those kind of things.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
saying just good at what I can do and figure out I want to become a mechanical engineer, I want to become an MBA with this kind of job profile, or I want to, in my case, I did engineering, then realized that I could write well. Somebody else guided me, and then I reached a place where I decided what I was doing wasn't good enough. I shifted careers and became a copywriter. Those kind of things happened, and the idea of belonging to a certain set of people who were seen as good writers or being in a good agency. So that ambition was a fire inside. You wanted to be someone who was recognized for a talent that one was working on, honestly working on.
Yeah.
Now it is about that kind of ambition. Uh,
Yes.
Personally, I've also found that over a period, a lot of it has dwindled. One is happy being what one is. But what happens when you're young and you really want to, but are not getting the hang of how to walk this seeker's path, because those are more of existential questions at times,
Yes.
which have
No, I
no,
think I think I understand your question.
yeah,
To basically somebody who's trying to balance quote unquote traditional or worldly goals, ambitions, career
yeah, yeah,
with also continuing the journey. And that is, the answer was very clearly given, at least how I understand it, by the Buddha, because right livelihood is, has an equal status as more kind of lofty things on the path. And to me, most of what we've discussed, whether you're a mechanical engineer or whatever you're trying to achieve, falls into that broad category, because what you're trying to do is to attain a certain status, a certain source of income, a certain source of satisfaction for your actions through the day, or a logical end for the education that you've achieved. Uh, so to me, that is not at odds with the path at all. But it can seem like that to a lot of people, and it did seem like that to me earlier. And what I've learned from my teachers is to blend the two. So if you take the example of a mechanical engineer who's trying to be a writer, there is no goal, right? So it's the process itself which is the journey. That is what you're doing. So as you are uncomfortable with being a mechanical engineer, you accept being uncomfortable with a mechanical engineer, and then your heart's desire is in arts or in dance or in whatever. Then you skillfully manage your career and you move it away, but not delay uh, gratification or growth to a point where you think that once I've achieved that that status or being part of that community of good writers is when things will move. It is pretty much what the Buddha said in terms of being in the moment now. It's a very difficult thing to do. I still struggle with it. By no means is it accomplished, but at least for me that is clear now, because what is clear is that ambition is a nice goalpost to have, but it's the journey, it's the minute, it's what are you doing today, this hour, that is more important, right? You're not trying to delay it. Also, you're not trying to kind of make them two separate paths. This is a path, and your livelihood or your ambition is an integral part of that path. You can't let go of that and say, oh, I'm going to live in a center or in a ashram or on the hill. It just doesn't work like that. For some who do become recluses like that, then that life is also the path, because they still want to, they still have to find a source of food and water and shelter and medicine, and that's what your livelihood is providing you. So they become one, and until you've become a full monk, then you have to embrace the householder life, and you embrace the householder life, then ambitions and related livelihood related tasks and community, they are all the journey. So it many young students, and I myself, when I was younger on earlier in the journey, thought that what's the point of studying all this, and what's the point of making money when when spirituality is the goal. And now I realize that making money is an integral part of that journey. So ambition for me is a wonderful thing, but it's a very low level. It's there, and then it's like a guiding star. Yes, I'm setting up a business. I have goals for my business, but I don't fall in love with those goals. Okay, that will happen when it happens. I have to focus on what I'm doing now.
how do you, I'm trying to watch from a different camera angle the same question. So one of the thoughts that came to me is, how do you see livelihood, quote, making money, quote, fulfilling ambition, whatever, any of the, these are things that we have to do as householders, as our responsibility to ourselves, our families, our friends, the society, whatever we've chosen. What do you think is the role if seen from an outside view, not from our point of view? Am I clear?
As as in somebody, I'll rephrase the question. As in from somebody who is not really having a meditative practice from their perspective.
From a worldly, so the world is functioning. The world is functioning because all of us are playing it, our parts.
Yes,
So from the world's point of view, when looked at Nishant or Bunty, what is it that they expect, and how do you see our own goals align with that? Or is there an inherent conflict because I want to reach somewhere? So do you see the contrast?
I'm trying to think.
Okay, so there is a role defined for us.
No, no, I understand what you're. The question I understood is like
Okay,
how does what is the from a society or a community perspective, what is our role? And I frankly haven't given much thought to that. And not only have I not given much thought to that, I really don't think that's a worthwhile topic for me to think. I mean, I'm merely one amongst billions, and much larger forces are at play for societies. I think if I can be a peaceful person,
okay,
if I can play that role, then I am just playing, I'm maxing out on the value I am providing to society, regardless of what society expects from me. Uh,
okay.
Being peaceful is pretty much the best thing I can do to give back to society. I could be peaceful and married and have kids. I could be peaceful and an entrepreneur, or I could be peaceful and sell vegetables on the street. It really doesn't matter.
Oh, wonderful. So now I will contrast this with another question that was running in my head, which was a traditional line of. So while on our journey, you spoke a lot about the journey is the goal kind of thought. We have companions on the journey who are uh, either of a similar professional background or working with us in different roles within the same sphere of business. Uh, so writers work with art directors, client servicing, account management, and all kinds of people in an ad agency, for example. Now there is this unsaid rule or pressure on a person to keep performing in a certain manner as expected, uh, not necessarily because the organization demands it, but I'm saying in terms of pressure, peer pressure. Oh, that guy has got 2 awards this year. What about you? Or everybody else is maxing out and they are handling three clients, and you are good only up to a certain part. All these are unsaid things. The
Correct.
organization does not put it down on paper, but it is kind
Yes.
of expected, and there are pressures. Now, on a journey of seeking something beyond uh, the obvious goals that everyone has, uh, a lot of letting go happens either voluntarily or involuntarily.
Right.
Some things go away from you because you're meant to grow in that path. Some things go away because you are no longer interested. Uh, how does one balance it at that point of time? Because you did say that we have to find a balance, but it was still from the perspective of what I want for myself, and I take time out for doing this, and I take time. What about the pressure, and how does have you gone through a time where other companions were doing very well, or you weren't doing well enough, or you were not in, your heart was not into it? Has that kind of
Right.
introspection ever happened? And uh, I can tell you, it's been bad sometimes because one doesn't even want what everybody else is running after at that point of time. And while
Right.
you did say it seems judgmental, But it is also true at that point of time you're trying to figure out what you want out of this equation.
Right. So just because it's judgmental doesn't, I'm not judging the judgment.
Okay.
Uh, it's a fact of nature that our ignorance makes us judgmental all the time. I mean, we're
Yeah.
judging pretty much all the time. Uh, what I was trying to say is being aware of it and then not acting on it gradually weakens that tendency, and that's the
Oh,
way out of it. But back to your question, uh, I don't know. I think becoming an adult for me has been a journey of kind of setting up my own criteria of success, like what I define as what I really want and what it means to be successful. And fortunately, I feel for some reason or the other, what others think of me has not made a difference. So I'm talking about personally. For me as an individual, that hasn't really made a difference. There are moments of weaknesses when you see others doing things that you also wanted, that I wanted, but I'm unable to, or getting rewarded and applauded or recognized. But increasingly, that has reduced, and I rejoice in the fact that that has reduced, and uh, it has come to a point where it really doesn't matter anymore. I'm pretty much on my own journey. But having said that, the goals still remain similar. As you know, I'm setting up a business, so I do want to be profitable. I do want to make an impact. I do want to serve customers. I do want to be seen as a successful entrepreneur. So those goalposts remain the same. It's just that their value to me is very different. Attaining them is not at all the goal. It is what I'm able to do with a very clear and calm mind uh, in pushing my products and services to those who need it. That is the critical part. And if that happens, if I'm creating genuine value and if I'm solving a genuine problem in the best possible way and messaging it, packaging it, saying, getting the right story, all the things that any traditional business person would do, uh, if I'm doing all of that, then the outcome is still going to be the same because the guideline for me is very simple, which is what the Buddha has said: when you're in your right livelihood, what you have to make sure is you're following the Eightfold Path and you're preserving your Shila. So I'm not misleading somebody, I'm not misrepresenting facts. I'm keeping my larger goal, which is my liberation, very clear, and that's front and center. And my livelihood then becomes an enabler. And so the that jealousy or that comparison, or others are doing this and I am feeling the pressure that I'm not getting there, doesn't come in because it's too short-sighted. What happens to the best of the chief election commissioner retires, then what about the next 20 years of your life? Or a businessman will fall ill at some point. You're so rich, but like those are very intermediate or short-term goals. And when the goal is slightly longer, then those minor milestones don't bother you as much. So that's for me. If somebody is early on in the journey and is feeling the pressure and comparing and therefore suffering, it's that is also a nature. You have to accept that and kind of live with it and keep growing. And at some point, that bulb will light up from within. No amount of sermoning or telling somebody that this is what you should be, keep the goal on the larger picture. Just like my teachers tell me things that I'm unable to do, but that seem very uh, matter of fact and obvious to them. When I get there, I will get there. For now, this is where I am, and that's what I would tell somebody else who's starting on the journey, that if you're suffering, it's okay, it'll change. That is the key. That if you're getting anicca into daily practice, into daily life, eh, then other things will happen.
Uh, since you spoke of anicca, or for the audience who do not understand the term, it means impermanence. Loosely, obviously, one can do an entire episode on that. But okay, this is a question a little off the topic that we've been discussing because you brought the term into question. Does impermanence make one scared in the beginning when one encounters the concept? Did it happen to you? Is there anything that helped you make your peace with it, or was there no such need when you first encountered the term or the concept or thought about it uh, in a deeper or in a personal experience kind of way?
Uh, Not really. So for me, I prefer change as I like that translation of anicca more as
Okay,
change than impermanence, because
okay,
that makes it, to me, that makes it more dynamic.
sure.
Somehow it's just a preference, and to me that is very liberating. So it has always, uh, ever since the definition at an experiential level has started sinking in, even early on, it was always, in my view, a progressive, constructive, positive thing,
Okay,
because it was a key that unlocked all the problems. Because if I'm not getting something, that will change. If I've gotten it, the fear of holding on to it or losing it, oh, it's anyways going to change, so why not? It's very liberating for me. That's It's very relaxing and liberating. However, uh, I've had friends report how traumatized they were at
okay,
realizing an itcher. And for me, the part that unnerves me is, when I see how this is going to play out with people I love, and that's where I don't like nature.
okay.
And I think I may struggle when I will be parting from people who I'm in close relationships with. But so far, whenever that has happened, it has not been as traumatic as I imagined. So on the whole, anicca and change has been a crutch that has helped. Uh, for those who find it traumatic and scary, uh, that thought itself is going to change. So what just
Right, sir.
going back to a practice. If you have a meditation practice, then that's much better, because what's the point in engaging in you're going into a very negative spiral if you're evaluating a niche and then you're building on it intellectually. That's the cat has already got out the door, right? There's no point. You're it's
Yeah.
so this is not something to intellectualize. If it's there in the moment, you're feeling it, you're equanimous to it, great. But if it's somehow making it difficult, then letting go is the best part.
So I got again a completely tangential question to this answer. So
But
earlier,
actually,
sorry.
sorry, I'm curious about your. This is a I haven't. This is a very interesting question. What was your? Have you asked this to others, and have you had people who have mentioned a change or impermanence to be very scary?
Uh, Personally, when I first encountered it, and maybe it would have been the first Vipassana course where I encountered it on a deeper level. Like,
Right.
like change is the only constant must have been told to us in school, so it wasn't
Yes.
really new.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, the whole aspect of uh, recognizing that this needed to be understood moment by moment traumatized me more than anything else, because as a concept one can buy into it and you can think about a lot of things. Oh, you are ready for death and you're ready for the death of your loved ones, and you may have a lot of fancy notions about yourself. And uh, I had a bit of a quote unquote spiritual upbringing in my head, always interested in finding out what was the truth of human existence. And uh, I was in a desperate uh, need to get old because I thought all old people had the answers. So while people wanted to be young, I wanted to be older. I said, "Okay, they seem to be in control of the situation. They may know something that I don't." As I grew, I realized that everybody was kind of feeling their way through and may not necessarily be as confident as they show. So in the knowing of Anitya itself at that point of time, it seemed like that nobody had the answer, and the teacher, the principal teacher, whatever I was hearing on the discourses, and it seemed it was an impossible task. Like, these guys have got it, but these guys are special people, and I am nowhere in the picture. I have completely, I could see that this is the path that went to where I've always wanted to go, but I hated every minute of it, everything. So even when I came out of the course, I was sure that I'm never coming here again. This is a wonderful thing, but it's not for me. I want to go back to the world of certainty, and I want to grow up and be young and have fun, and all kinds of things were running in my head. Uh, Luckily, the second stage was better. The second stage was like after every 2 years, I had some setback in my head, and I came back and I found it very relaxing and soothing. And the same concept suddenly seemed, uh, I seem to have evolved to at least make peace with them, if not absolutely accept them. Slowly, at some point after 4 or 5 courses, I think it just came to a point where some kind of uh, penny drop happened at some point, and there's nothing you want from it anymore. You just accept the facticity that this is it. You may like it, you may dislike it, and then what you said made sense. That every now and then I started feeling okay. It's up to you how you're going to see through this. At this point, you're feeling uncomfortable about it. So be it. So slowly, I think it's a journey. It is not one, because this is a question I've asked a lot of people. When did the penny drop happen for you in terms of, okay, this is the path, whichever path they may be on, not necessarily Vipassana. And I found that they always gave this answer. And as a youngster, I was very agitated. How can there not be one single point? But today, with a little bit of wisdom, I realize that it is always a series of things that keep happening to you, and gradually you ease into the understanding, perhaps. If there is a you, obviously, that is a separate point altogether. But whatever body and form and mind that we have, that keeps changing, and it becomes accepting or understanding or wiser or other wiser in that sense at different points. So my answer would be that. And good that you brought it up, because I have always seen the context of not liking it, but I did not know why. My first course. So I was like, so now if I ever suggest, uh, if somebody asks me, though I tell them it's a terrible thing, but if you want to go, it is the most wonderful thing to do in the world, but it is a terrible 10 days. Yeah, it is not necessarily the easiest, and all those kind of peaceful things may happen is a misnomer. It may not happen.
Yes.
Uh, so yeah. Um, so the question I was going to ask you is also related to some time back. I asked you, what do you think of the world looking at us as professionals, in the sense of the camera turned back upon us rather than through us. Uh, how does one uh, contribute when one is unsure of the path at that point of time? Like the things that I mentioned, these are all series of events that keep happening, and uh, how do you reconcile your own effort in a place where things seem out of control, in a, see, change being the only constant, or or death or impermanence, whatever word you want to give it, or anitya, um, you seem helpless in that space. How do you act from a place of that kind of, how is it different from fate? How is it different from destiny? Is it the same? Uh, so there are different words that can be attributed to it, but that feeling of not being in control, which otherwise makes us feel that we are right or wrong, is a different matter. But in the mind,
Yeah.
if I'm sitting down to work out this podcast with you, I'm putting up the technology, uh, whatever wherewithal required, I am requesting you to come online, and you are coming over, and we are having this chat. So this gives me a series of thoughts and words and deeds that I do A, B, C, D, and I reach here.
Right.
But in that acceptance, there is no such thing. There is, perhaps it is directly connected to the earlier question. That's why you feel a little threatened by change. How would you want? I would want you to go into that mind space and answer this if you can, or if there is a story that has happened to you, or any experience where you were in a difficult space and you could uh, negotiate it, or whatever wisdom arose at that point of time.
No, that's the heart of, let me replay that question back to you. The heart of what I'm hearing is there is a certain safety and pleasure in certainty, no
Yeah,
matter whether it's true or not,
yeah,
and an immense helplessness and lack of control when you realize change all the time, when you see change all the time. Uh, and I guess that, I would imagine that there comes a stage. I certainly am not in that stage, but there would be a stage where that knowing absolute reality lets go of all the doubt.
okay,
But but short of having reached that stage, what is critical is right view, right?
okay,
I think it all boils down to, if you've got a mindset that accepts causality, that sees cause and effect, and kind of sees nature all around, and appreciates, at least intellectually, that things don't happen at random. They are not in my control, but there is a method to the madness. There is
hmm,
something that it only appears chaotic and lawless and uncontrollable. However, there is a path where you can actually control it, not in ways that you can predict it, but you can set a trajectory and move ahead on a path which is to your liking. So not so much. I mean, you can get onto a train that's going to take you to where you want to go. You just don't know how long it will stop and where it will stop and where it will break down, but it'll keep moving in that direction. So that is what helps me to put it. I know it's very abstract what I just said, so let me put it into something that's a little bit more concrete. The times when I've really struggled and questioned the unfairness, or felt helpless at why me, or why this person, or for me it has come up a lot in my personal relationships, in not being able to help. So you've got all different types of people, right? For me, my primary reaction is always for those who are in my close circle, my close family and friends. I'm the kind of guy they would ask, what should I do? And I've thoroughly enjoyed that role, and sometimes being successful in giving advice. But the most frustrating thing happens when, even though I see something very clear, or at least I think something very clear, hey, you should be doing this, don't do this, and the other person is not able to understand what I'm saying, or just pay lip service and do exactly the opposite. And that is so I mean, it's just devastating for me that, why is it that I can't control this when everything seems clear? Here is the path, here are the things, this is the technique, this is the process, here are the things you should let go. I mean, it just seems, it's just so clear. And why is the other person not able to do it? And, gradually I'm learning that there are causes as in conditions that are at play in everybody's life. Same thing what I just said earlier, that, there is, I don't know what they are, but there is a method to this. There are reasons, there is causality, and surrendering my ego and accepting that there are causes and conditions that I can't understand, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. For me, that is a much simpler way of getting that certainty and that faith. Uh, and that also helps me see why so many other people have all these different other faiths. Not not the ones that I follow, but faiths nevertheless, which give them that support and that certainty that helps them move along. And it just helps me reconcile that. I don't know if I've answered your question, but uh, till you become liberated, till you really, really know and can witness all causality yourself, you have to have faith. And for me, this that abstract faith in causes and conditions is helping me make progress, or at least I think it is helping me make progress.
You did answer the question. You also raised the other question along with it. Uh, so the incidentally, the last part of your answer was also the question that was forming in my head. So, are we really, as a race, as a human collective, so fond of certainty, stroke God, stroke higher power, supreme consciousness, whatever names we like to give it, is because we like to think that some certainty is taking care of us, even though we seem clueless at that point of time. So my question is that when we say that we are okay with uncertainty, uh, it is only on the condition that somebody will take care of it, even though I am unable to, or some force will. Uh, is this the primary reason of all the kind of faiths and beliefs in the world, according to you? It just struck me when, luckily, you also answered it in a manner where the last few lines were there. So my question is, are we giving names or concepts that give us peace because the temporary nature of the chaos is so strong and our helplessness so vivid and unnegotiable that we need something like that? Do you think that is the reason why we form those concepts?
Uh, I'm not sure. You may be right. I mean, if we look at, and I haven't studied this or given much thought to it, but just listening to your question, what comes to mind is if we go back in time when there were supposedly lesser scientific breakthroughs and laws, uh, people would pray to the elements and make sacrifices and things just to get certain, a little. So if somebody is going out fishing, they would have some sea deity or something, and they would do some ritual to get some certainty, some support when you're going out into the wide ocean where you don't know the weather and all sorts of things can happen. And I think we all like that. I think because
Yeah.
nobody, it's for me, my faith, I have no way to prove it. My faith is in causality. Uh, if things are not actually causal, I'm setting myself up for some huge failures. Uh, but to the best of my observation, intellect, education, people I admire, their lifestyles, everything points to the existence of causality in nature at certain levels. It's just a question of degrees. My ignorance can only lift it up to a certain degree, and somebody else's who's much smarter. One of the people I really admire is Daniel Kahneman. He's written this book. He's a psychologist who won a Nobel Prize in economics, the only one who's ever done that. He wrote this book, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. Uh, and the reason I'm bringing him up is somebody who's just purely intellectually with a curious mind can unravel the laws of nature and get to reality in a way that is predictable. So you create laws that you can then say, okay, if you do this, then this will happen. And that predictability gives you faith in that causality. And as in the spiritual realm, the same thing applies. It's not as micro as a law of gravity, but it is still very, very well defined, at least the way I understand it, in terms of you're maintaining your Shila, you're trying to, follow the path, you're building your ability to stay aware and stay equanimous based on changing nature of sensations. So when you're doing all of those things, you are creating the conditions for a certain type of a life, uh, which I like, which I believe is for my benefit, for my well-being. So, uh, in that aspect, you and I are no different from a tribal person thousands of years ago. It's just that it's refined, at least to our conscious self. It has been refined down to something more subtle and probably something more closer to reality, but not absolute reality. So, yes, this tendency is there in all of us, and it's definitely there in me. And wanting that certainty, it's just how close you can get to that certainty being actually also aligned with reality is what makes the difference.
Sorry, I had a question that came and went along with a couple of others. So let me think of a new one. I did promise myself this would be the last. So, um, in this journey that you've had so far, uh, change itself is a very, very wide-ranging perspective. You did mention, so okay, I'll ask you a question that came up a little earlier. So you said that you are okay with a lot of things, and but the loss of loved ones is one thing that kind of scares you. How are you going to deal with it whenever the time arises? Uh, can you tell us a little about your journey in terms of more being more accepting of this concept as you understood? Forget the fact that that other part may come at whatever time it may come. None of us know it for ourselves, forget our loved ones. Uh, but are there any stages of quote unquote improvement? Because there is no improvement per se, but understanding or uh, better understanding of nuances. Uh, are there any experiences or are there any places where your journey surprised you and you were like, okay, like some things happened to me sometimes earlier in my journey, very often, or during my journey. Some of it has been quite dramatic, and a lot of people know that I had two long-term patients in my home at one point of time, and my dad and my wife were both unwell, and that went on for 6 and 9 years respectively. And so it was a, but I now, even now, when I look back at it, and I'm kind of surprised, how did I deal with it without uh, being in despair all the time? Obviously, there were bad days, but otherwise, it was quite okay. It's just the life that I had. So, is there anything that has happened which kind of gives us a clue into how you think your journey has been in terms of progress? Or Progress being understanding of nuances. You have mentioned a couple of times that you haven't reached the
Yeah,
state of absolute reality or understanding yet. So,
yeah, that's a very far away thing. But for me, just couple of things stand out.
hmm,
One is, and I don't recall when, but it was well over a decade ago, I want to say, or
hmm,
somewhere that timeline when I read The Art of Dying. It's a beautiful book,
yeah.
and just celebrating death and being so comfortable and matter of fact in talking about death. And we live in a culture where when even if you just mention somebody's death, they say, "Oh, don't talk about it. It's not. It is not shubh to talk like that. It's a bad omen to talk about things like this." And for me, the milestone one that comes in mind is that it's absolutely not. It's the opposite. It's wishing somebody a good death is actually, if somebody tells me that may you have a peaceful death, I'd be that's the
Blessing.
best thing somebody can give me. But that happens over a period of time. I can understand why death scares everyone, including me. But at the same time, I also see the hope in death and in a good death. So that book and the stories in there, which were kind of autobiographical or biographical narratives, gave a lot of hope. And then uh, over the years, I've actually witnessed a few really, really joyful passing away. People who've had terminal illnesses, and more importantly, they were ready to pass away, and their family was celebrating in anticipation of their death. In fact, there
Oh,
was one person who had a party a few days before they died, and they served cake and everything because they knew she's a terminal cancer patient. She was happy, she was ready to die, and everyone around was ready to let her go, and they celebrated her life. That's just beautiful, and that gives me a lot of hope that the path that I'm on, even though there is this duality, right? There is this fear, and I know I may suffer,
of
but
course.
at the same time, there is also immense hope that my practice will help and will kick in when the time comes. And the few deaths that I have witnessed in my own personal family, it has happened. It's actually I've been fairly calm and not broken down and done what's required and been able to cruise through it. So yeah, that's you know, it's these two things: seeing few events where people have actually passed away that I know in a very pleasant, peaceful manner, and that book and its related stories and the whole kind of philosophy around the art of dying. That's such a beautiful title. It is an art, and seeing that it's not just imaginary, that it's actually happening in small bits and pieces all around the world to practitioners gives me a lot of hope and a lot of encouragement.
Of course. It just came to me that we started with talking about ambition, and then we are talking about a loftier ambition about dying peacefully. And
Yes.
uh, so many things are so overwhelmingly peaceful and calm that you do not want to spend time talking a lot about it, because the whole feeling of peace is uh, very silent in itself. Uh, your last answer was quite calming, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And I've enjoyed this conversation. Uh, I will hopefully see you again in some time and think of a
Yeah,
bit.
no, this was wonderful. I'm happy to have this discussion anytime, and it's I realize how your questioning made me think, and I'm grateful for that. And thank you for having me.
I shall see you soon. Bye.
All right, take care.
Yeah.